Hi, everyone. My name is Dominic DiMaria. We are here today for another installment of our Get Moving series. Today, we are doing the everything you need to know about credit scores and credit repair. And today, I'm joined by Chadwick Burks from Broken Curse Credit. Hello, Chadwick. How are you?
Hello, I'm very, very happy to be here. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to go over some things with us. Now, credit, I think, is one of those things for most people that is kind of an intangible thing for a lot of people. People don't understand it. They know it's important. Hopefully, they know it's important. I think it's confusing for a lot of people. So thank you again for taking the time to spend with us here today and go over some things. We'll start right at the very, very beginning. What is a credit score?
Well, a credit score is basically what the rest of the world thinks about your ability to not only borrow money, but to repay it. Um, so these credit bureaus don't confuse yourself by thinking that the government is involved with this because they're not. So the three major credit bureaus, and there are three of them, are private companies that are for-profit companies. And what they do is they gather data about you to determine what they feel is your worthiness to borrow money and to repay that successfully. So imagine a giant supercomputer full of proprietary algorithms that looks at things you've done in the past, what your current employment situation is, how you've handled your debts, and then what they predict will be the likelihood of you repaying your debts in the future. So they have all these different factors that go into a giant stew pot, and they give you a number. And then that number can be purchased, literally purchased by other vendors to determine, what's your ability to repay a loan. So basically, they are the guys and gals that do all of the legwork, the PI work, so to speak, before someone is going to lend you money.
Interesting. Okay. And so why is that score so important? What does the credit score determine?
Well, good, bad, or ugly, if you're wanting to make a major purchase and you're not paying cash, the credit score is basically critical. Even if you do alternative financing out there for mortgage purchases, like let's say, for example, you're a self-employed person, so you have certain kind of write-offs or what have you, do a lot of cash or you pay for a lot of things in crypto, things like that. For those alternative income verifications, then the credit score is incredibly critical. But basically, if you want to take out any kind of loan, the huge majority of businesses or lenders that exist are going to pull a credit report for you, and they're going to pull it from one of the three major credit bureaus. So if you like it or not, if you agree with the system or not, if you think the system's great or broken, the reality of it is if you're not paying cash, you got to play with it.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So as far as your score, how do you know as just an individual what your credit score is at any given time?
Well, there's several different ways. So you can purchase the score just like anyone else, which is just about the only way to really find out what your true credit score is. Because remember, these are three for-profit companies that are out there. So they want you to purchase your own credit score. And the federal government allows you to one free credit report per year by law. And this was to help consumers protect their finances, to make sure their credit reports didn't have any errors or anything. But of course, the way the law was not written correctly enough. So you can have your credit report once a year and you do get it for free, but it doesn't have your credit score. So it doesn't really help you a whole lot forget that report without a score because you have to pay extra if you want the score. So the only way you can get it, the real score, is to pay for it. The other little loopholes, you can go, there's some free sites out there like Credit Karma would be one, Credit Sesame would be one. Sometimes your bank is going to show you, here's what we say is your estimated Experian score or whatnot. But those are generally not your real credit scores. They are algorithms that are done by these companies that are basically clones. They're basically the great value version or the Costco version of your score. So it can give you a ballpark idea, but the three credit bureaus, their algorithms are proprietary. So anytime you see one of those scores that you might get from a freebie place, they can vary up to, 20, 30, even 40 points sometimes. Sometimes they're close, but the only way you're going to get it is if you go to a professional credit monitoring company that deals directly with the bureaus, you can get your real score. Other than that, it's going to cost you.
And how important is it for you to know your credit score on a day-to-day basis? Is it something that's really only important when you're going for something large, like a big purchase, like a mortgage or a car payment or a car or anything like
Well, credit's my business, so I'm going to tell you that it's important for you to know it every 5 minutes, right? But
that?
I say that only to protect you and to protect your assets and to protect your good name. Because by knowing what your credit score is at all times, or at least very frequently, that can identify problems for you. Because if you see a decline in your credit score and you haven't done anything that could trigger a decline, that's a huge red flag. That means your debt balances have increased. And if you haven't done that, it means someone has. It means other accounts have been opened, or it means someone has attempted to open other accounts, or someone is, you may have erroneous information on your report. 85% of all credit reports in New Hampshire have errors. And that is a fact that was put out by Experian. So if they say 85%, it means probably it's more like 99% in reality, right? And that's not unique to New Hampshire. That's all over the United States. But if you know your credit score, the first most important reason would be to protect yourself from financial disaster or financial problems or identity theft. The second reason would be anytime you're going to make any sort of purchase, you need negotiating power. You need leverage. You need to know what you're going in with, because a lot of times if you go to somewhere, and I hate to use the cliche of car dealerships, but it's a cliche for a reason. You might not get the full story when you just walk in there and say, "Hey, I want to buy a car." So if you know this ahead of time, you have something to work with.
Okay. So, as far as getting a credit report,
Mhm.
how would you like, what is the best way to go about
Well, the easiest way to go about it is for them to contact you guys there
it?
at
Okay.
Porcupine Real Estate, because you guys are patriots, and I support that dramatically. And for people that deal with Porcupine and work with them, I will give them a free credit audit. They don't even have to pay anything for that. And my
Okay.
audit does not impact their credit score at all. It is not a credit pull for them, and it will show them all three of their credit scores. By law, to full disclosure, you have to pay $1, so it's not completely free, but you have to have $1 invested in that. But then you get all three of your bureaus, and it's the real score. It's not the little algorithm stuff. And then instead of paying $100 plus from that and getting a credit inquiry, you can get it for free. And then I work up the audit that says, here's the good, the bad, the ugly on your report. Here's what you need to know about, be aware of. Here's the sections to look for. Do you have errors? Do you have mistakes? Are there some accounts you're not familiar with? And the reason I do that is because to prepare them. So if they're interested in doing a real estate purchase, obviously, they're going to need that knocked out ahead of time, because, especially if you're going to finance. Underwriting, you want it to be on the underwriter's desk the shortest time possible,
Right.
right? And so you want to find anything that could be a little roadblock, and you get it done before you get under contract. So then you fly through, and it's super, super easy. So
Well,
that's why I do it. I want them to go through you guys, because you are partners that I can trust, and it makes it easier for everyone involved.
well, I think one of the things that confuses people, or they hear like the interest rate is such and such a percent. That is your best case scenario. If you've got good credit and you've got like, if you're planning on trying to buy something and you're factoring in that percentage for your financing, that is your best case scenario. If you have less than stellar credit, that number keeps going up and up and up. Is that correct?
Oh, that's more than correct. Because not only that, but a lot of times what you hear in the media, of course, the media is famous for being accurate, wise, and true. But what you hear in there is like, oh, the rate is this. they don't tell you that's the rate when you pay like 1% of extra fees or 1% of points or what have you. So no, you're not going to get the full story on the rate. You are absolutely accurate that what you're hearing is a best case, and there are tiers and tiers and tiers and tiers and tiers when someone goes to finance a mortgage. And your rate is based on what your credit score is. There's a lot of other factors, but that's a huge factor in there. Absolutely.
So I think that kind of covers the whole, like, what is a credit score? What is a credit report? How do you use it? What does it do? Let's talk now about how you would repair credit that has been damaged. So in a situation where somebody comes to you and they've got less than stellar credit,
Mhm.
what would your process be for that person?
Well, the first thing we do for anyone that has a credit issue, whether they have very little credit or they have a damaged credit, or for any situation, is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for those errors. Okay, so we're going to go through that with a fine tooth comb. We're going to see, do they have addresses listed there that they never lived? That's a sign of identity theft or a potential for identity theft. Do they have places that employers that they haven't worked at for a long time, but still the dates aren't correct? Do they have anything along those lines? Are there accounts there that aren't theirs? Are they a co-signer on someone else's account? And unfortunately, in families, this happens a lot where brother puts you on as a co-signer and you didn't even know it. Or you may have been connected to one of your mom's credit cards when you're younger and you didn't know it. She was trying to help you out, but she made some late payments down the road. So we're going to look for errors first off, and we're going to clean those errors, right? And those are the easiest things to do, is to get rid of the errors. But then after that, what we're going to do is we are going to use the law to our advantage. So everything that is done in credit repair, as far as from my company, is completely legal. We follow the law, the letter of the law, and we put the onus onto the credit bureaus and onto the creditors to follow the law. And most of the time they do not. And so you wrote the law, you made the law. If you're not going to follow the law, we're going to make you follow the law. And so that's kind
So
of how credit repair works.
just out of curiosity, when you say you follow the law, what would they be doing that wouldn't be within the rules of the law or the bounds of
Oh,
the
a
law?
lot of it. So, just for example, there are multiple laws that cover credit reports and credit repair. Fair Credit Reporting Act is a very big one. And you have the right as an American citizen to dispute anything that's on your credit report to verify for its accuracy. You have that right. And the law states that the credit bureau has to verify that account within 30 days. So they have to verify that is legitimate reported information that's accurate within 30 days. Now,
Hmm.
when you look at your credit report's going to show all three of your credit bureaus, right? And 9 out of 10 times, all three of those bureaus do not have exactly the same information. 9 out of 10 times. So immediately we know someone is wrong. The information is wrong somewhere. So you say, by law, verify this. Prove to me this is correct. Show me this is accurate. And then if they do not do that within 30 days, they are supposed to either delete that account or remove the late payments because they haven't verified it. Now, do they do that immediately? Almost never. But I don't care what they want to do or think about doing. The law is the law. So you push it, you go after it, you hold them accountable, you quote the law to them. We have tons and tons of tools, but you're basically getting things removed on their own negligence, or they're not caring. That's the easiest way to say it.
Gotcha. Okay, so after you take care of the errors, what's the next step?
Well, we're going to look at the errors first. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at inquiries, because a lot of times, again, the different creditors, not the bureaus, don't follow the law on credit inquiries. If you've gone into a car dealership to buy an automobile and you tried to finance that, then you probably have things on your credit report that are hurting you that shouldn't be. because here's the dirty little secret for car financing. The laws on that are much looser than financing a mortgage, right? So when you go to a car dealership and they say, well, let me see if we can get you financed. What they'll do is the dealership, in most cases, will send your information out to like 8 or 9 banks. And they want to get quotes on each one of those banks. And those banks are going to say, at this rate, we will pay the dealership this much money for the loan. At this rate, we're going to pay the dealership this much money. And so then the finance manager will go back and forth and compile what's going to be most beneficial to the dealership to do the mortgage. Well, not a mortgage, but a car loan. And so a lot of times when you have this nonsense of going back and forth, haggling the price of the car to the sales manager, they're really haggling the terms of the financing because they make their money on the financing and the service, not on the actual car sale. So where this ends up being hurting you is you gave one place the permission to pull your credit. They sent it to 7 or 8 banks, and all 7 or 8 banks pulled your credit. So now you have 8 credit pulls in one day or 2 days.
Oh,
So the bureaus go, this person's in trouble. They're desperate. Something's gone wrong. They need money. They're looking for money everywhere they possibly can. And the red flags go up. The law says if that happens in the automotive industry, it's only supposed to count as one inquiry. But I've never seen one credit report ever where there was only one inquiry. There's always 7 or 8 of them. So we want to knock those out first. Lending Tree and stuff like that, horrible also, because Lending Tree has never made one loan in their entire life. Bankrate has never made one loan in their entire life. People go, oh, I got my loan from Lending Tree. No, you didn't. They take your data, they accumulate it, and they sell it to different parties. So you go to lendingtree.com and they sell your data to 5 or 6 mortgage companies, and they train those mortgage companies, pull this credit as fast as you can and harass these people as quick as you can. You're going to get the deal if you're first and you're persistent. And so now you not only have 5 or 6 credit pulls again instantly, but you're probably going to have 5 or 6 credit pulls again for like the next 90 or 120 days. Because when a newbie comes into the mortgage place, first thing they do is they go, you go hit those old 90, 120-day leads we paid for that didn't pay anything. And that's what they do.
Okay, so we took care of errors, we took care of inquiries. What's after that?
After that, we're going to move into the stuff that is iffy. So we're not going into the stuff we know is bad, 100% sure. We're going into the iffy stuff. This might be, well, I'm not sure if I had that account. It doesn't seem like it. I don't think I ever paid that late. They never told me I was late. I never paid a late fee, or something along the lines of, well, no, I've been out with my brother. I've known he's paid it every month, or my roommate and I had this phone bill together. I know we paid it when we moved. The university made us prove that it was paid before we could graduate. Things like that. And those things, we're going to challenge them. We're going to say, we don't believe this is accurate, prove to us that this is accurate, or at least verify it, right? And in that case, we're saying, we're putting the onus on you to verify this because we don't believe it to be true. So that's the next round that we go for. And then after that, when we've exhausted those things, then we can go to the things that are legitimately not there. And we just go, okay. I go, well, you have a collection account. And of course, every collection account has a story. No one has ever had a legitimate collection account in the history of the world, right? Well, I paid Verizon and they screwed me on this anyway. Or, this is baloney. They told me I didn't have to pay. And a lot of those are probably legit. So I don't judge anything morally at all. I am a legal person who follows the law. That's what I do. And I am not going to judge you good, bad, or ugly based on your credit. I don't care. I really don't. I'm a numbers guy, a math guy, a law guy, right? So we're going to take those things and we're going to say, verify this is correct. And the reality of it is, and again, I don't want to know if it's legitimate or not. That's your moral and ethical decision, right? But the majority of the collection accounts from scumbag collection agencies, they buy them for pennies on the dollar. And as part of getting pennies on the dollar is they don't have any verification documents. So if you dispute those the right way and demand the right things from them, and you understand how to do the process, they can't verify a lot of those a lot of times. So you end up getting collection accounts deleted from the credit report.
And that's probably something that, as a professional who does this for a living, you know the tips and tricks on how to do those kinds of things, whereas somebody who was trying to correct it themselves wouldn't really know where to start or how to go about it.
This is super true. And I'm glad you brought that up because, especially with collection accounts and charge offs, it's very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Because under certain statutes of the law, if you, as a consumer, initiate contact with the debt collector on an account that's already outside of the statute of limitations, sometimes if you initiate that contact and correspond with them, it resets the statute and you're liable for the debt again.
Oh,
So there's been some people that have done that and that they were fine on these debts. They're already at the point to where regardless if they paid them or not, they couldn't be sued for them. And based on their actions, they're now liable again. And don't fool yourself to think that these credit bureaus and these collectors have your best interest at heart, because they will send these notices again and again saying, we'll settle this for a fourth of the price. We'll settle this for, whatever. We'll do a payment of $20 a month, whatever. And that's just bait, because what happens is if you don't take that full settlement, you go, no, I can't do that. But can we start at $100 a month? Now you've acknowledged and authorized that debt. The statute of limitations is gone in some scenarios, and now they can sue you for the full balance. And a lot of times they do. Discover Card in particular has done this numerous times from customers that I've seen. They've baited them in on a settlement, and they said, I can't do the settlement, but I want to do right, so I'm going to do a smaller amount. And then, a month later, they get a lawsuit for the full balance.
wow. So I would think that's probably something that people just don't even know that that's a possibility, and then they fall right into that. What other kind of common mistakes are? What else do you see out there as far as common mistakes go?
Well, collections is another one. We talked about collections and what this is it's not intuitive and it doesn't really make common sense to you, but it's the reality of how it is
Mhm.
that when you have a collection on your credit report, um, the algorithm that computes that for the credit bureaus doesn't make any difference. It doesn't distinguish between if a collection account is paid or not paid. So I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone that has some collection accounts. They finally decide, okay, I'm going to do right. I want to buy a house. I'm going to get my score up. I'm going to clear my debt off. I'm going to buy a house. And so they go pay off, 3 or 4 old medical collections, even if they're like $40, $50, $200, right? They go pay them off. And then their credit score drops 150 points. And they're like, how is that even possible? Well, here's how it's possible. And this is some good proprietary stuff here. I mean, I really shouldn't be telling this to people. I'm giving away my business, but you're kind
Feel
of
free to.
folks. I don't mind helping. So what happens is the further away you get from a collection date, the less it impacts your credit. Now it's going to impact your credit for 7 years. But every month you get away, it impacts it less and less and less. And then after you get past 2 years, it's even less. It lessens pretty substantially after 2 years. So what happens is there's a little thing on your credit report you can look at that says DLA, date of last action, or date of last activity, depending on which bureau it is. So if you get a collection, it's going to say, okay, here's the day the collection account was established. Let's say it was 2 years ago. So that's your date of last action. So the computer goes, this collection account's 2 years old, unpaid collection. Now you go pay it today. Now it goes, date of last action, paid today. So now it's like you got a brand new collection today. And it doesn't care if it's a zero balance or not.
Now, does that fall off eventually, or how does that work?
7 years after today. So you just,
7.
not only did you just screw yourself on your score, you bought yourself an extra 2 years that it's going to stay on your report than before.
Wow.
So there are a lot of things out there like that that people don't realize. And it's also very important to do things in the correct order. And your average person doesn't know that or doesn't understand that because you have to remember this. And I know this sounds horrible, but I'm being honest. The credit bureaus do not want you to fix your credit. It's not in their best interest at all. And
Right.
it's not that they care that you have bad credit. They don't care what your credit score is. You're nothing. You're just a minion. You're nothing to them. They don't care about your score. But what they do care about is how many people they employ and how much profit they make. So if they actually did their job and followed the law, they would need 10 times the employees they currently have. So instead of having, and I'm just making numbers up here, instead of having, 1,000 employees to process all the disputes, we can have 100 employees to discourage you from repairing your credit. Then we don't have to do the disputes. Doing disputes is what takes time, money, and effort from the credit bureaus. So they do everything that they can to avoid the dispute process. And that's where it all comes from. So don't think that they hate you in particular or that they wish ill will on you for a bad credit score. They just don't like you if you cost them money.
Makes sense. I mean, it is an industry. It is one of those. They make money because of all of the things that you're talking about. So I
Yep.
understand. Okay, so what do you do in a situation where you have an overdue bill that was sent to collections, and so I'm confused because you say don't pay it off or do pay it off. Like what is the proper procedure? Should you pay off your bills?
Well, I'm going to give you the answer that my lawyer said to give you. It depends. What you need to do is you need to consult a professional. Obviously, you need to call me or someone like me. I would say you're probably better off to call me because I'm the only person doing credit repair legally in the state of New Hampshire. So if you are moving to New Hampshire or want to be in New Hampshire, I'm the only one that does it legally. And that came direct from the Secretary of State. He said, I'm not sure that you're the only one doing it in New Hampshire, but I know you're the only one legally doing it in New Hampshire because you have to file a bond with the state of New Hampshire to do what I do. And that protects the consumer. And I'm the only person in my industry with a bond filed with the state. So that's why they made that comment. But you really do need to talk to the professional because it depends on what the debt is for, how old or recent the debt is, and what is your end goal. If you have something that needs to be resolved immediately, if you go, I've got a chance to get my dream property, but we have to close in 45 days, that's very different than the guy who goes, New Hampshire looks cool. I might move there in a few years. Those are two very different scenarios. And then again, yeah, sometimes that debt, if it's legit and there's documentation and verification, needs to be paid. But if you go through me, we can negotiate that debt. We can get a better payment terms for you. And more importantly, we can get that to where when that debt is paid, they're going to delete it from your account. We're not going to show it as paid. It has never existed. But you need to get that in writing through a third party because every creditor in the world will tell you they're going to delete it and then they don't. And you can't do anything about it. You just say it's your word versus theirs. And of course, the regulatory agencies are going to assume you're the scumbag that didn't pay your bill, so they're going to side with the debt collector.
And we may have gone over this, but there is a question in the chat, and it's how do you fix an item on your credit report that doesn't belong to you but is in your name? So let's say somebody opened an account under your name, stole your identity, used your credit cards, something along those lines. What would be the best way to go about fixing that?
Well, once again, it depends. It's going to be what type of account it is, how old it is, and what kind of documentation you have, if any, that it's not yours. The simple answer is if it's one isolated thing, it's not identity theft usually if it's one account. Usually it's a typo. It's a cross. It's a screw up. It's similar last names, transposed social security numbers, typos. A lot of times when you have, Jimmy and Jimmy the second and Jimmy Jr. and Jimmy the fourth and stuff, it's that it can come with the parents. And then when you get into, especially in the Hispanic community, there's so many common names there that you get a lot of that also that bleeds over. So if it's one isolated account, we're gonna go from the innocent route first and try to get it corrected with verification. And that point, I wouldn't request, I would demand a signature verification. Because then if we can prove the signatures don't match or there's no signature, then by law they have to get rid of it. Now, if it's multiple accounts or if it's something that's very flagrant or a large amount, then we're immediately going to go to either filing a police report, and then going to the bureaus with a police report or a complaint with the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and go that route. But if you have identity theft and it's legitimate, you can get rid of it. And in fact, I have a customer right now. And if you're like this, please don't contact me because this is killing my life right now. But but no, I'm just kidding. I help anyone. But he had 18 aliases in his name.
Oh, wow.
And he was this Hispanic gentleman with a very common name, but this individual took out 18 variations of his name. So we're dealing with dozens of accounts, even made female versions of him. And we're dealing with dozens of accounts. Now, the individual did this, got arrested, and he was actually in Boston, believe it or not, which is hilarious. But he got arrested in Boston for doing it, and but we're still dealing with the aftermath, and it's been so complicated because again, the credit bureaus want to make this as difficult as possible for you because that's in their financial interest.
So is there anything you can do to protect yourself from identity theft? Is that part of what you do or not really?
Well, you can. I don't particularly offer like identity theft service or anything like that, but there are some organizations that provide that. I'm sure you've seen some. I'm not going to name the names on TV that have commercials 24/7 that talk about identity theft and whatnot. But a lot of those services, some are better than others. Um, your free services are going to be worthless because think about it. What's their business model? Yeah, I mean, come on. So common sense will tell you that. But I do work with when I do my process, we set up credit monitoring for you as part of the process. And the reason we do that is so that you can not have inquiries on your credit report through our process. We can get updated credit scores without inquiries. We can interface with the bureau without inquiries. But as part of that monitoring, which is a different company, it's not my company, but I trust them the most of anyone. And even if you didn't use my credit repair services, I would highly suggest that company because they offer not only the constant monitoring just for your basic things, but they go through and monitor 9 levels deep. They even can tell you if someone has searched your name on the dark web. I mean, that's how deep they go. And then if someone does do something for your identity, they have $1 million of insurance to go and clear your name and stuff that they use for lawyers and whatnot. So if anyone is interested in not just credit repair, but a really good identity protection service, let me know. I'm not going to do free commercials here, but I'll be glad to tell you if you contact me or contact you, Dominic. Sure. But I mean, you can get about the highest level protection that exists for about $20 a month. And there are a lot of places that charge 10 times that, but you can get some amazing service for $20 a month if you go to the right place. So if you want to know who that is, hit me up or hit Dominic up and I'll get you that information.
Along those same lines, we haven't really talked about locking your credit. Can you explain what that is and in what situations it would be a good idea, bad idea?
Sure. Locking credit it can be good or bad. And again, you really need to talk to the professional. What they used to do in the old days, and you still see a lot of this garbage floating around on the internet because pretty much there were so many scams to try to get qualified for a mortgage. No offense, Mr. Realtors, but to get qualified for the mortgage,
I
right?
don't do mortgages.
No, I know, but they were doing it for the realtor. So you know what I'm talking
Sure.
about. So they would do that. And so what they used to do is they would go dispute like every single thing on the credit report, dispute it all. And the old credit report algorithms, if it's in dispute, then it took the negative aspects away while it was in dispute. So you
Mm.
could, if you disputed every single thing and knew how to do it correctly, then you could take like a 500 credit score and go up to like 740 for like a month or 2 months. And then they try to close that mortgage real fast, right? Well, Fannie and Freddie eventually caught on to that and they go, no, you cannot have anything in dispute that has a cumulative balance of like $500 or something. So that's out the window. Um, and so the other thing that they would do is they would tell people to freeze their credit reports. This was a few years ago. And then they go to the underwriter and go, this person had identity theft. That's why they have these couple credit hiccups. It's not their report. Look, they even freeze the report because people stole their identity. Um, that game is gone too. So the only time you really want to freeze your report is if you are 100% certain that you've had identity theft. That's the number one reason. The secondary reason is if you're 100% certain you're not making any purchases using credit for any time in the near future. So let's say you're a debt-free multimillionaire and you own your house free and clear, or you just bought your dream home and you're like, I'm not taking any more debt. I'm living on crypto or I'm living on this other stuff. Then you freeze your credit report, sure. But I will tell you, it's a pain in your butt to do it, but it's way more of a pain in your butt to undo it. So that's the issue. So if you're going to freeze it, be serious about it. Don't freeze it just for fun to protect yourself. Your identity theft protection programs are much better because I've seen it bite them in the butt for people who had their credit frozen. They're trying to get a mortgage, they're trying to close on a house, and for whatever reason, one of the three bureaus won't unfreeze it because, oh, your personal information doesn't match. You can't verify this. We sent a letter to somewhere you lived 3 years ago and you didn't respond, and they can't get it unfrozen. And if it's not unfrozen, a lender will not do a mortgage for you.
Hmm. Okay. And then there's another question in the chat, which is, what is the quickest way to increase your credit score?
Call me. That's the quickest way to increase your credit score. But no, seriously, you need a game plan because a credit score is comprised of so many different parts and pieces. It's not just one thing. You have a small part that is how many credit inquiries have you had in the last 2 years. You have a part that is how much total debt do you own. You have a part is how old is your credit, and you have a part of what is your credit mix. So if you don't know all of those components and what weighs heavily than the others, then you're not going to be able to do it quickly yourself. You need to get a game plan from someone who understands and knows what they're doing. Sometimes you can increase it by paying debts down. But again, you have to know which debts to pay down, to which amounts, to which percentage. Sometimes paying a debt off will hurt you. Sometimes you don't need to pay the whole thing off. You want to pay this much off and it's better. Sounds weird, but it's just how it is. And then sometimes we just need to get rid of those inquiries. Or in other cases, sounds strange, but we need to open you up another credit card and that will boost the score up in the short term. Then afterwards, you can do what you want with it. But, you have to realize this, and this is no offense to anyone out there at all, but you don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to argue with a brain surgeon about me getting brain surgery. I'm not going to argue with a plumber when my basement's flooded because I don't know. And unless you've seen thousands and thousands of credit reports like I have, you don't know what you don't know. And people that put all that information on the internet for free, they don't know what they don't know either. There's always an agenda for someone. So, call someone for a free consultation. If you go through myself or Dominic or anyone at Porcupine, I will look at it for you for free. And if you want to use me or don't use me, we're going to part friends, and God bless you. But you at least will get real information, and you know what to do from that point.
Very good. Last question in the chat is, can you contest a credit score and get it adjusted? So out of those three
Well,
companies,
that's what we just talked about for 45 minutes.
right? But I'm saying, like, so if you have your three credit scores that are in your report when you pull
Mhm.
it with you, can you just say like, no, I don't agree with that?
Well,
or
that's what,
have to
yeah,
like go through the whole process?
well, that's, well, you can say you don't agree with it all you want, but if you don't go through a formal process, it means nothing. That's just like, I refuse to acknowledge your president. Well, that doesn't really going to change what happens to you day to day, right? So, but no, that's what the dispute process is for. That's why the law is in place. It is there to allow you to have the rights to do that, to challenge it. That's what all that credit repair is successfully, from an intellectual, planned, structured way, disputing items and correcting things that are not accurate. That's what credit repair is.
Right.
But again, it's the same thing as just going, well, that's all dentistry is removing an infected item from your mouth. Well, it's a little more complicated than just that, right? But that's what it is. And remember, the three credit bureaus are three independent bodies, and they have their own little algorithms. And rarely, very rarely, are all three of the scores the same. So that's a little something nifty for you guys to know who are looking to buy a house or buy a car or rent an apartment or get a job. You know, they're going to take the middle score of all three of your bureaus if you get any kind of financing. They're not going to take the best one, they're not going to take the worst one, whichever's in the middle. So if you don't know all three of your credit scores, what you have is useless. Because I can't tell you how many times that someone has said, oh, I got a 720, and they get denied for a mortgage, and they come to me. Well, they have a 720, a 510, and a 510 or a 520. And the reason is because most of the, I hate to say it, but scumbag collection bureaus will only report a collection to one bureau. So this person had tons of collections, and just by the most random of coincidences, none of those like 8 collections were reported to Equifax. They all were reported to TransUnion and Experian. So that score looked great, and that was the free score Credit Karma gave them. And they thought they were amazing, when in fact, I mean, come on, they had to know that they're not. I mean, when you get the letters every day, but that's where you need to really get an expert, and especially look at all three. And then don't argue with your loan officer or your realtor when they tell you don't qualify, because it goes from the middle score, not your best. And be happy. Well, how come you want to take my best? And we'll say, well, be glad we're not taking your worst. That's what I would say. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. We're coming to the end here, and I just want to give you an opportunity again to pitch your free credit audit to our clients.
well, I don't have to pitch my credit audit. I mean, if you want it, great. If you don't want it, it's less work for me to do. But I think that everyone should be educated on their credit information, and I always offer a free consultation to you know parties that I partner with that I believe in,
Mhm.
right? So I always offer that. So basically, it's going to cost you $1. We're going to go through. I'm going to take very little information from you. I don't even take your entire social security number. So, I mean, I try to keep the information as small as possible for this to even work. And I'm going to get you all three of your scores, and I'm going to work you up an audit. And this audit is going to break everything down in a way that's much easier to read than a credit bureau. It is the same information, but it makes it easier to read. It's also going to tell you how much you're paying for a car or a home purchase now compared to what you would pay if your score was better. So you can make those apples to apples comparisons. And you might look at that and go, okay, I didn't think my credit score was a big deal, but now that I see $280,000 of interest over 30 years, that is kind of a big deal. And then, yeah, it is, right? So I give you that report. We'll talk. We'll walk through it. I'll answer any questions you have. If I can help you and you want me to help you, we'll move forward and do it. If not, again, we'll part as friends. And sometimes I might not be a good fit for you because you don't need me. If you have one minor little simple thing, I'll just say, do this. You don't need to pay me. Just go do this. It's fine. Or you might be good enough where you don't need me, and I will tell you that. But you get the peace of mind to know it. Then it gives your realtor team and your lender team has information to work with, and it works great. So you can do it one of two ways. You can go straight to Porcupine and Dominic and those guys. We work together. We help each other, and they can connect you to me. You're getting qualified for them to get you something anyway, so we may as well work together from the get go, right? Or if you want to, you can also go to brokencursecredit.com. My company is Broken Curse Credit because I think the credit bureaus have you cursed. And my little logo is a blue jay in a cage, but the blue jay's on top of the cage, having broken free. So that's the whole point, Broken Curse Credit, right? If you go to brokencursecredit.com, or you can email me directly at Chadwick, my first name, at brokencursecredit.com. But I'm sure these guys will put all that information in the chat or the comments or what have you, and you can always reach me through Porcupine because those guys are amazing.
Great. And just a reminder, my name is Dominic from Porcupine Real Estate. You can reach me at dominic@porcupinerealestate.com for any questions about real estates. If you need some lender recommendations, if you need a broken curse credit recommendation, please feel free to reach out. Happy to just have a conversation, no obligations. So thank you very much, Chadwick, and we will.
I enjoyed it. And by the way, great questions. Those of you guys in the chat, obviously, you know what you're talking about. I mean, you're on. Those are some very good questions. Trust me, I've done webinars before with not so much. So so Dominic, you got a good crew paying attention to you there.
Excellent. Very good. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great night, and we will see you in the next one.
Take care.
Bye-bye.